If you're like me, you want your outdoor landscape to have multiple benefits. And the beauty about the California-friendly landscape, using native plants, good irrigation, and good care provides a multitude of benefits. First of all, native plants and those water-wise plants like our weather. They like our climate. They like that nice, cool winter, and they like that hot, dry summer. And the most beneficial part of native plants is they take very little water, but they're beautiful. They come with great color, great fragrance, great dimension, and just beautiful shapes and sizes. Using a California-friendly landscape is going to make your outdoor space something you're going to be proud of. It's going to be efficient, it's going to increase the value of your property, and it's going to be beautiful and practical for your family and friends. If you want to have a successful landscape, there's a few things that you want to consider. Number one, you really want to know what kind of climate zone you live in. And really what we're asking here is how cold it gets in the wintertime. Do you get a lot of frost? And in the summertime, how hot does it get? Frequently, when you go to a landscape professional and want to select a plant, you want to be able to let them know what kind of climate you live in. You certainly don't want to take a cool season plant or a plant that doesn't like frost and put it in a frosty location. So understand exactly kind of the climate zone that you're in. That's going to be very helpful. Also, what you want to do is to determine around your house what direction is north. So when you walk out your front door, are you facing north, south, east, or west? That also helps one understand where to plant plants, because that gives you an idea of where the shade and where the sun patterns are throughout your landscape area. That's important. Part of the planning process of your landscape is to really identify what kind of theme that you would like for your outdoor living space, that outdoor room. There are several different types of themes that people are attracted to. It may be a Spanish type of landscape, Mediterranean type. It could be a very natural type of looking landscape, a butterfly garden, a hummingbird garden, many different types of themes. And then once that theme is established, of course, you want to find the right plants that work within your landscape. And a very important part is to define plants or select a plant that's going to work within that given space. If you have a 2 by 2 foot square shrub area, you don't want to plant a plant that grows to 10 or 15 feet wide that's going to outgrow that space where you're going to have to prune it severely. You want to find a plant that works within that space. And the California-friendly or the California native plants are the plants that you'll want to select for your landscape. And there's several different varieties, several different textures, several different colors and fragrances that can really make your garden pop and really become alive and beautiful. A lot of fragrance. Understanding your soil texture is pretty important in the garden, because the soil is really what brings life to the plant. It provides water, nutrients, stability, and it really allows the plants to grow well. And a healthy soil means you'll have healthy plants. So one of the first things you want to do is just take a little physical examination of your soil. Texture is really the size of the mineral parts of your soil. A sandy soil have very large mineral components. A clay soil, very microscopic. If I was comparing one to the other, a sandy particle would be like the size of a beach ball, and a clay particle would be like the size of a pencil point on a piece of paper. So by just grabbing a piece of soil and looking at it, you can tell if you have a heavy soil, clay soil, because when you squeeze it, it'll stay together. And if you try to move it with your fingers, it'll form a ribbon. Well, this soil is more of a loam soil, kind of in between. It falls apart, a very healthy soil. If you have a heavy clay soil, you're in a new development, you're likely going to need to amend it to help the soil and to help the plants grow healthy. And the way to do that is just take a sample down to your nursery, your certified nursery professional at your retail nursery center, hand them some soil or put it in a little baggie and say, what kind of soil do I have? And they'll be able to describe the kind of soil you have and perhaps the kind of amendments that you're going to need to improve the quality of your soil and improve the value and the beauty of your plants. To understand your soil can have a real profound effect on your garden and how well your plants do. And one of the important things about soil is how fast the water will percolate through the soil. Heavy clay soils, the water moves through that soil very slowly. Sandy soils, it moves through very rapidly. So a simple perk test in your garden will give you an indication of how well your soil drains. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So first we're going to dig a hole about 8 to 10 inches deep. The soil has been hydrated, otherwise it's wet, and that's the appropriate time to fill the hole with water. So I'm going to take a hose and I'm going to fill it with water. Fill it all the way to the top. After the hole is filled with water, what we want to do is try to measure how fast that water will recede on a per hour basis. And what I like to use is either a tape measure or a ruler. And what we'll do is extend the tape until it reaches to the bottom of the hole. We can see that this depth of this water is 9 inches. And really what we want to try to accomplish here is to determine how fast that water is going to recede or move into the soil. Now, if you have a clay soil, a heavy soil, it's going to move rather slowly, but if it's a sandy soil, that water would percolate right down pretty rapidly. Ideally, what we like to see is to have water move through the soil at 1 inch or greater per hour. 2 hours ago, for this simple percolation test, we put 9 inches of water into this hole, and presently, after 2 hours, we're down to 3 inches, meaning in 2 hours, the water percolated into the ground 6 inches, which means that's excellent drainage. Now, for new developments, frequently you'll find soils that are very heavy, highly compacted. If you dig a hole, that's if you can dig a hole because it's very difficult, you'll fill up the hole, come back the next day, and the water may not have receded more than 1 inch. That tells you that your soil doesn't drain very well. In that case, you want to go to the nursery, take some soil with you in a baggie, and ask the nursery person what you can put into the soil to help your drainage. A fun step in the landscape process is actually planting the plant. And one of the things that you want to do first before you dig your hole is to find out the depth of that root ball. And that simply can be done by just measuring the depth of the root ball. So if you look inside the container, and I can see this root ball is down about 4 or 5 inches from the top of the container. So this root ball depth is 7 inches. I want to dig this hole so it's 7 inches. So I want the hole large enough and have the sides of the hole soft enough so it makes a very pleasant environment for this new plant. Simply after the hole is dug, you want to take the plant out of the container carefully so that you don't disturb the root ball. Simply straddle the bottom of the plant with your hand and then pull the container off of the plant and then set the plant in the hole at the right depth so the top of the root ball is even with the existing grade, and then position the plant so it becomes attractive from the point that you'll be viewing it. At this point, we're ready to backfill the plant with the soil that we have here next to the hole. Once you have the tree in its final home and you've backfilled the soil around the root ball, I always like to put a watering basin around the plant to ensure that water will focus and move right down into that root ball. So the process is just a matter of piling up some dirt, forming a dish around the base of the plant. After you have that berm in place, then it's time to irrigate it. And the beauty about native plants and California-friendly plants, you don't have to do this very often. A good drink of water at planting time will allow this plant to get off to a good start and become well established soon in the landscape. So to get the plant off to a good start, you want to dig a right hole, you want to place the plant at the right depth and also at the right angle, backfill it properly, build a nice berm, water it, and that way you're going to get it off to a good start with your new plants. If you're looking to plant grass in your California-friendly landscape, there are 2 classes of grasses that we use in Southern California. There's the cool season grasses, which we call the fescue grasses, very commonly found now throughout Southern California. You buy them in sod or seed. And then there's the warm season grasses. The warm season grasses are what you see on athletic fields, and they're used there because they're more durable, they have a lot of strength, and they can take a lot of abuse. We recommend that if you're going to grass your house or put lawn in your house, you think about using the warm season grasses. In fact, I'm kneeling on a warm season grass now called St. Augustine. It's a very durable, a very tough grass that makes a beautiful landscape part of your house. But more importantly, it's a grass that doesn't take a lot of care and takes very, very little water. In fact, warm season grasses take about half the amount of water as cool season grasses. So if you're thinking about grass, think about warm season grasses, save a lot of water, and have a beautiful lawn. The California-friendly landscape uses smart irrigation technology, and that's irrigation sprinkler systems that put on water very evenly, efficiently, and they can save us 40% of our water. That's good for our water supply, it's good for our budgets, and it's also good for our plants. There is a difference. Presently today you see irrigation heads in the lawn that are 4-inch pop-ups that put on water in a fan spray fashion. And let me demonstrate that for you. This is a fan spray very commonly seen today in most of our landscapes. There's a lot of drift and a lot are wasted in this type of an application, and it doesn't put on the water very uniformly. And it puts it on at such a volume sometimes that the soil can't absorb it. And when that happens, then the water that it can't be absorbed runs off down into our gutter, and it's an extreme amount of water waste. The California-friendly landscape uses a smarter technology, which is a stream rotor, and it applies water like the rain does. It's a stream rotor that gently applies water to the grass and to the landscape. The soil absorbs it, there's virtually no runoff, the plants enjoy it, and it's a much healthier way for plants to be irrigated. And it's also fun to watch. If you notice, a stream rotor is more efficient. It moves through the landscape, and it applies water with great uniformity and great distribution uniformity. So if you're thinking about using irrigation technology in the California-friendly theme, go for the stream rotors. These sprinkler heads are about $5 a piece, and you're going to have to look for them at the irrigation landscape supply houses. You won't find them at nurseries and some of the mass merchandisers yet. And if you go to bewaterwise.com, you'll find where you can purchase these heads. When you move into the shrub areas, there are 4 different types of irrigation devices that I like to show you that are low volume, that really work with the California-friendly landscape. All of these devices, these drip emitters, drip systems, fine spray systems, put water right where the plant needs it, right at the root ball area. One example of emitter that can be plugged into a poly pipe laid through your garden is this fine little sprinkler that puts water right around the base of the plant. Another fine spray low volume device for large areas where you might have a ground cover that can be directed to any location you like, right where the root zone is this fine spray system. And the third emitter is called a drip emitter, and these can be plugged right into the poly pipe. And what's important with these emitters is that you want to have one on each side of the root ball. And so they just drip water right to the root zone area. And lastly is an emitter that's an inline emitter that can be put around the root ball, plugged into the poly pipe, and all this pipe can be hidden by a layer of mulch so you'll never see it. And again, it just drips water into the area of the root zone where it's most advantageous for the plant. The California-friendly irrigation systems are low flow. They put water right where the plant wants it. It's much better for our environment. It saves a tremendous amount of water. And to get more information about this, you can go to the website bewaterwise.com. The most efficient way to water your landscape, believe it or not, is with a hose. And that is that person who walks around the garden early in the morning, and we call them a hose dragger, and waters their garden with a hose and perhaps a nozzle. It's still the most efficient way to do that. Many of us are too busy to do that, and we have selected to use automatic controllers. Unfortunately, most of the controllers in the houses today are old-fashioned controllers, and they water automatically, rain or shine, unless the homeowner goes out and adjusts those controllers during those weather changes. That doesn't happen very often. The smart controller, which is now coming onto the market, the California-friendly controller, waters it according to the weather. I have several controllers that I want to show you that fit into this smart or weather tracking controller that I would suggest that you think about for your landscape. I have 3 controllers in front of me that I call smart controllers. These are weather tracking controllers. These are extremely efficient, and they water according to the weather and the temperature. This particular controller, it has historical weather information in it, and it also has a temperature sensor that hangs to the outside of the garage or underneath the eave. That temperature sensor, along with its historical data, tells the controller how much water to apply at what times of the year. These 2 controllers are much more sophisticated, and they are actually satellite controlled. Every day, these controllers get a signal from the satellite telling them what the weather is like outside. These controllers then make that adjustment and then will water your landscape according to the weather. Therefore, it takes a lot of the guesswork out, and for those people who are busy, who can't get out and change their controller every week, these controllers will do that for you. They're more expensive, they save a tremendous amount of water, and they're certainly much better for our plants as well as our environment. Once you've completed your landscape and it's all in place and you look back and say, boy, this is a beautiful landscape, it reaches my goals, a question that is often asked is, how much water is this landscape going to require? And by looking at your plants, they'll tell you. In fact, if you're using the California friendly or the California native plants, these are the water-wise plants that are really acclimated to our area. They use very little water, so the answer is pretty easy. In fact, they use 2/3 less water than conventional plants. Now, to get an indication of when those plants need a drink of water, take a look at the plants. If they look lush and beautiful, they don't need any water. If they start to show a little bit of flagging or a little bit of drooping, that might be an indication that they need some water. And the best way to do that is to take one of my favorite tools in the garden, that is a garden trowel, and go out and dig around the plant. If that soil is moist, it doesn't need water. Perhaps there's something else wrong. But if you want to really know how much water a plant needs, look at the plant, check the soil, and see what they tell you. To keep your plants looking beautiful and kind of conform to the area that they've been planted in, sometimes they require some pruning. A lot of California natives and many of the drought-tolerant plants or the water-wise plants don't require much pruning at all. But if you have to prune, I suggest you do it judiciously and try to prune the plant to make it look like you'd find it in nature, very natural and beautiful. Now, to do that, I like to use a pair of pruning clippers. That way one can go in and judiciously prune the plant and make it look natural and beautiful. What you want to avoid is going in and shearing a plant with a pair of hedge clippers or power shears. Frequently you'll find in formal gardens where there's hedges and so forth, these things are appropriate. But in a natural, beautiful garden where you want value and beauty, you don't want to shear, you want to prune. Now, in many cases, formal gardens require hedges that need to be pruned and so forth with hedge clippers. But can you imagine if I were to take a beautiful plant like this and have sheared it a month ago with this and made it look like a ball? There wouldn't be one bloom or one flower on the plant. So it's very, very important that when you prune is to prune judiciously with a pair of pruning clippers, not a pair of hedge clippers. Well, what about pests and disease and fertilizers in the garden? How much fertilizer does a California-friendly garden really require? Really, very little. If you keep your soil enriched with a good mulch and compost, the fertility in that soil will really allow those plants to grow without any artificial fertilizers. However, in some cases you may need some fertilizer, and if that's the case, your plant is looking like it's fading in color, you might want to take a sample down to your certified nursery professional at your garden retail center and check in with them. They'll be able to specify exactly what kind of fertilizers or soil amendments you might need for that particular plant. In respect to pests and other diseases, you know that most pests and diseases come into the garden from over-irrigation. When you over-irrigate the plants and over-irrigate the soil, it brings in a lot of pathogens and a lot of detrimental insects. If you have an insect problem, that's typically because maybe you have too much water, but I also would suggest you take a piece of that plant, a cutting of that plant, put it in a baggie down to your certified nursery professional and let them diagnose it and look at it and give you some environmentally sensitive products that will be really perfect for that particular plant. In respect to fertilizers, again, if you keep your soil enriched with mulch and you irrigate it properly, you're going to have very few problems with fertilization. A healthy garden with appropriate amount of water has very few pests and it has a very, very enriched plant material that will give you the goals and the beauty that you've been looking for.
Call or write to request your free copy of today's program, and you will also receive this free CD-ROM full of plant ideas for a water-wise garden. Just call 1-800-388-0005 or send an email to the tap at mwdh2o.com. Order your free copies today.